What's up, guys? Kevin Forbasi here to talk sports with you today. I know it's been a little while, but I figured tonight it's a perfect time to catch up. Tonight's episode is going to be primarily focused on the NBA. And to start off the top, some big news coming out of the NBA tonight. LeBron passed Wilt Chamberlain for fifth all time on the NBA scoring list, and it's incredible what this guy's done throughout his career. He's in his 16th season, still plodding along, one of the best players in the association, arguably the best player today, and he just passed Wilt for fifth all time. He's, I believe, within a thousand points now of Michael Jordan, and he should pass Michael by the end of the season. That's incredible to be this good for this long, the top of the games. Arguably been the best player in the NBA for the last 10 seasons, which is just crazy. I mean, most careers don't even last 10 seasons, and realistically, he should pass Kareem by the end of his career at this current pace. I believe he's only about 5,000 points behind Kareem, or maybe a little more. I believe he's at like 32, something like that, and so I think Kareem's 38,000. But he keeps going, and I know there was been this narrative at the start of the season that, oh my gosh, Lakers are in trouble. They started off maybe like 1-3 or something like that. But what people kind of forgot about those early starts is some of those first like handful of losses were to great playoff teams. They lost their first game was Portland. They went down the wire opening night, and they ended up losing that one. Portland was a 3 seed last year. And yes, they got swept by the Pelicans. It wasn't a great showing in the playoffs, but Portland is a real team. Then they lost to the Rockets, who were the number 2 seed in the league. I'm sorry, had the best record in all of the NBA last year, and narrowly lost to Golden State. And then they lost to the Spurs. Of course, the Spurs are always a really well-coached team, and so there was this narrative like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with the Lakers? Luke Walton's got to solve everything. Well, if you look at the standings tonight, Lakers are 8-6, 2 games out of this 2 seed. They just beat the 2 seed in the West. Yeah, LeBron and Co have figured it out a little bit, and I think we're going to see them make a run, and I think they have a very realistic chance of clinching the 2 seed in the playoffs. Yes, it's very early. I know we're only 14, 15 games in, but they're coming together, and LeBron, while he hasn't played up to it necessarily all season, still, in my opinion, the best player in the world, and there's a lot of talent there. Between Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, Kyle Kuzma, Josh Hart, and bringing JaVale McGee as that center. There's some good talent there. I mean, yes, maybe some odd and end parts between Rajon Rondo and Lance Stevenson, Beasley, but now you have the veteran presence in Chandler, who we just brought in last week after the buyout with the Suns. You kind of get some of that cohesiveness together. This team's figuring out how to play together. Luke Walton's figuring out how to allocate those minutes for between Rondo and Ball, and how to best effectively play lineups together. But keep in mind, guys, this is really early in the season, so don't overreact to what we're seeing. Right now the Rockets started out of the gate really slow. I believe they were like 5-9 at one point. They were, for the longest time, they were firstly in the cellar in the West, and we all know the Rockets aren't going to be there. I mean, they have had the issues with Carmelo and the meshing and whatnot, and I think some of that's a little bit overblown. They've had some injuries. Paul's been out of the lineup. Harden's been out of the lineup, so it's been difficult for them to really come together as a unit, especially because they've lost 2 of the key rotation pieces from last year between Luka Mbamute and Trevor Ariza. And so with any new team, you're going to have transition period. We saw that with the Lakers. We're seeing that with the Rockets. I mean, yes, it's pretty much the same team, but you do have a few new pieces. I mean, Gerald Green has a bigger role this year. Ryan Anderson's gone. Mbamute's gone. Ariza's gone. And so you really have to figure out the rotation now. Gary Clark's playing. You're playing, I mean, Marquise Chris doesn't really play a whole lot, but he's a new piece. Capella's now just got paid. How is he going to play now that he's been paid? And so it's just a little bit of an adjustment period. I mean, Harden did miss the period of time, and so it's easy to wrap up. Oh my gosh, Rockets are horrible again. And while I think they're not going to be as good as last year, because I mean, they were historically great last year in the regular season, and if it weren't for Golden State being as incredible as they are, Houston probably goes to the finals and is the favorite to win it. And honestly, if Chris Paul doesn't get hurt, they very well could have beaten the Warriors in Game 6 or Game 7 of last year. And so don't overreact to these early seasons. And a lot happens. There's teams figuring each other out. Maybe there's a little bit of a hangover from the start of from the summer, thinking of all that, and then, oh my gosh, we actually have to play again. So it's easy to get caught up. I mean, heck, the Sacramento Kings are in a playoff spot right now in the West, and while they've got some good young talent, nobody expects them to stay there long term. Um, but I do think there's some takeaways we can have, and one takeaway I have is clearly Golden State's the best team in the league. I mean, outside of the Draymond Green, KD altercation beef, and we'll get to that a little bit later. There, there's no team that can really beat them except for themselves. That's a cliche that's said a lot, but the only team that's going to beat the Warriors is themselves. If they implode from the inside, and if, based on what's happening now with Draymond and KD, it seems like a very real possibility. But I mean, people are like, oh, the Bucks, these other teams are so great. Yes, the Bucks have played really well, but again, 14 games in the season. Do have a new coach, which I like. Budenholzer, former Spurs coach, ran a great system in Atlanta, and Giannis is one of the most talented players in league history. He has a very real possibility of carrying that team. Let's not get carried away. The Raptors are still good, the Celtics still good, and Golden State's far and above the best team in the NBA. And I think something that's interesting is the West is really a bunch of teams grouped together. If you remember, the West playoff race came down to a couple games separating like 4th through 10th. And again, if you look at the standings right now, there are like 5, 6 teams with 6 losses. Another couple of 5. Portland's got 4. It's a tight knit race, and I think that's really how you're going to see it. It's like everyone's like, oh, the West is so great this year. Well, let's not overreact. Golden State's really good, but the West doesn't really have a great second team. I mean, if Houston plays up to what they were last year, I mean, Houston can be that great second team. But then 3 through 10, is there really much difference from 3 and 10? I mean, we saw the Pelicans beat the Trailblazers as the 6 when they were the 6 seed, beating the Trailblazers or the 3 seed last year, swept them. So there's this narrative that the West is so great, but really is it not just a lot of mediocre teams? And that's really how I look at it. I mean, I think only 3 teams in the West won 50 games last year, maybe 4 with Utah. That's not great. That's not historically great. And right now you see on the East, it looks pretty comparable. If you outside of Golden State, maybe the East is better when you have Milwaukee, Toronto's playing well. Boston, while they haven't played up to their billing thus far, I mean, they're still arguably the most talented team in the East, maybe even the NBA. I mean, I know Golden State's great, but Boston's got Kyrie, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Gordon Hayward, who has looked shaky to start, but you got to think, give him some time, he'll figure it out. He was a really good player throughout his NBA career. Big injury. It took Paul George a little while when he came back from the similar type of injury to get back acclimated to basketball and how he fits in the system and whatnot. So, I mean, there's going to be an adjustment there, but they're so deep. Terry Rozier off the bench, Marcus Morris off the bench, Marcus Smart off the bench. That team goes 8 deep, 9 deep if you add in Baines, and they're going to be there. Brad Stevens is one of the best young coaches in the NBA, one of the best coaches in the NBA, period. And so while they start off slow, remember, Boston's without Kyrie or Gordon Hayward took Cleveland and LeBron to a 7th game. And, I mean, yes, that Cleveland team was horrible outside of LeBron. I mean, we can see now Cleveland is now the worst team in the NBA. And I don't think it's particularly close. That team's garbage. And which further speaks to volumes about how great LeBron is to carry that team to the NBA Finals and nearly take Game 1 in Oracle against the Warriors. That's just, wow. I think that speaks volumes, and that's the biggest case, I think, for why LeBron should have won MVP last year. I think is making his case for why he should win it this year. Yes, he hasn't played great. That's probably a 44-10-9 tonight, kind of erasing some of those doubts about, oh, is LeBron slowing down? Got to give the young guys a chance to see what they're going to do. He's kind of feeling it out a little bit, figuring out where he's going to go. But, I mean, again, don't freak out. Boston's going to be okay. Toronto's going to be good. Maybe the Bucks are better than we expected, but we're only 15 games in the season. It's an 82-game season. we're getting into the dog days of the regular season, a long time away from the playoffs. Players still trying to feel each other out, learn the systems, a lot of new players. I mean, I know personally I'm a huge Spurs fan, and this last week and a half has been a little depressing from a Spurs perspective. Lost to Phoenix tonight, lost to the Orlando Magic last week, got throttled by the Heat a couple weeks ago, lost to the Sacramento Kings. I mean, when you say those names, like, oh my gosh, what's going on? But then you remember, Spurs without DeJounte Murray, he's out for the season. Derek White just came back. He's basically his first NBA experience, learning to play the point guard position. DeMar DeRozan's in a new system, trying to figure it out. LaMarcus Aldridge is now having to play second fiddle again and understanding how he fits within the schemes, playing with 5. So just breathe. I hear a lot of Spurs fans saying, oh my gosh, the Spurs have got a tank. This is a disaster. We just lost by 20 to the Phoenix Suns. And, well, yeah, that was disgusting. I hope the Spurs never play that poorly again. It's going to happen. We're 15 games in. The Spurs are a relatively new team. They were just put together. I mean, there's a lot of turnover from last year's team. Mark was back, but he wasn't on the team last year. I mean, the starting lineup, Dante wasn't there last year. DeRozan wasn't there last year. Brent Forbes was being asked to play point guard. Rudy Gay's been in and out of the lineup. It's going to happen. There are growing pains with every team. And for any team to say, oh, we should just tank at this point, we're not going to make the playoffs, it's kind of unrealistic. I mean, outside of maybe your Phoenixes and your Clevelands of the world, every team realistically still has a shot at making the playoffs. I mean, Dallas has shown some growth with Luka Doncic and company. And so it's easy to overreact to what's going on and say, oh my gosh, Spurs are done for. Boston is no longer the best team in the East. What happened to them? They imploded. But we're only 15 games in the season, so just keep that in perspective. Now, I want to get to, I think, one of the biggest topics in the NBA today, and it's not actually about anything NBA. As alluded to earlier, the Draymond Green and KD beef can have huge repercussions on the NBA. It sounds like, in hearing the press conferences from KD and Bob Myers, the GM of the Warriors, that this was a real heated altercation between Draymond and KD, and that there's really players pitted on either side, and KD didn't even seem like he wanted to reconcile with Draymond. I know it's in the immediate aftermath, day after, he's getting interviewed after the Hawks game, but that's not a good sign if you're a Warriors fan. And listen, I mean, you're gonna have beefs like this. Stuff's gonna come up, especially when you're this good for this long. You have a lot of egos in the locker room. Not to say Steph and Clay have huge egos, but when you're that good, Steph, Clay, Draymond, Iggy, KD, they've all been at or near the top and probably want to get their due, so to speak. And when you have that many great players, you're gonna have some bashing of ideas and people who think that they know what's best. And what's interesting on that play is, to set up a little bit for you guys, so the altercation between Draymond and KD derived from a late game sequence the game a couple nights ago. The ball game is tied, and Draymond gets a rebound off of a miss by the other team, and there's 5 seconds left. KD's calling for the ball, standing behind Draymond in the backcourt, calling for it, hands up, ball. Draymond ignores it, dribbles up the floor, and loses the ball. And KD immediately, gets after him, yells at him on the bench, and like, what were you doing? Why didn't you pass me the ball? And I'm gonna make the argument for you guys that I don't think either player was necessarily in the wrong. Now, if you look at it from KD's perspective, in his mind, he's the best player on the floor. He should be the one taking the last shot. Put the ball in your best player's hands and let him go try and score, and you lose or win on KD. And many people are going to be okay with that. If KD takes that last shot, there's nothing that really nobody says anything. Kobe took so many last shots and missed quite a few. Michael took a lot of last shots, missed quite a few. But teams are going to live and die with their best player taking that shot. Now there's the flip side, and I think one that maybe is not as easy to see in the moment, but I think is very legitimate, and that's, you want the ball in a situation like that in the hands of your best passer. Draymond is not a great scoring threat himself, but he's arguably the best passer on the Warriors, especially without Curry on the floor, who's injured currently. And with Draymond going and driving up the court, as you saw, the defense kind of collapsed around him. And if he didn't lose the ball, he has the opportunity to kick out to a Clay or a KD if KD had actually run up the court instead of whining and complaining all the way up. Has an opportunity to get a wide open look for one of his teammates. And Draymond's that good of a passer that's a fairly routine play for him. And unfortunately, he lost the ball. And then of course you see the heated exchange on the bench, and then apparently that festered into the locker room where had a big argument between the two, where maybe Draymond stepped out of line calling Durant the B word, and also challenging him about his impending free agency and stuff like that. But the ramifications of this can have for the rest of the NBA are huge. There are some rumors, well, not rumors, but some analysts suggesting that maybe it's time to trade Draymond, and people are like, oh, the Warriors will be fine without Draymond. I mean, yes, they will still be able to score with anybody. Curry, Clay, and Durant are three of the best scorers in the NBA today. Durant and Curry specifically could go off for 40, 50 in any given night. And frankly, Clay could too, and we've seen him get hot and just go ballistic on a given night. But what really makes the Warriors special is that not only are they the best offensive team in the league, but when they want to, they can be the best defensive team in the league. And what unlocks that is Draymond Green, who, lest we forget, was a defensive player of the year, consistently first or second team all defense, can guard multiple positions, is a small ball center for their depth lineup, and he's really a key cog in all this. And everyone's like, oh, well, they have DeMarcus Cousins. Well, DeMarcus Cousins isn't the same defender, and he doesn't open up the floor like Draymond is, and does. Draymond is a great passer from that 4-5 position, and routinely gets double-digit assists, gets his teammates involved, really is the emotional heartbeat of that team, keeping them engaged. And so I don't think you can just dismiss him and be like, just trade Draymond. They're going to be the exact same team. That's really dangerous. I mean, they've won 3 championships for a reason, and I think he's a key piece of that. Remember, they didn't become the Warriors until Draymond was inserted into the starting lineup by Steve Kerr in his first year at the helm there. And then I think the second piece is, if you don't trade Draymond, and even if you do, does this mean KD's gone? And I honestly, I don't know. I think since KD made the decision to go to Golden State, he shouldn't feel bad about staying there. And I can very realistically see him just saying, I'm going to stay here, we'll win 5-6 titles, which I don't think you can just take for granted that they're going to win many more titles down the line. But you could see him saying that. He has shown that he's okay taking that verbal backlashing from the media and analysts that don't agree with his decisions. But maybe at the same time, it seems to me he's gone to his head a little bit. Maybe he feels it's time to move on and try and prove himself again. Go to a New York or LA, team up with LeBron, which admittedly I think would be a weird decision from a legacy standpoint for KD to team up with a guy that you're trying to prove you're better than. But it clearly seems like something's off in this dynamic of this team. I mean, if we remember, David West came out after the end of last year and was basically said, you guys don't even know what happened behind closed doors, paraphrasing a little bit. But apparently there was a lot of turmoil last year that we just didn't hear about and didn't see. This was a public turmoil that we saw this year, and who knows how many times something like this has happened. I mean, Draymond got suspended, so definitely reached a boiling point this time. But if KD or Draymond leaves the Warriors, maybe all of a sudden they're beatable. They're not this invincible dynamo taking over the league. And I think for the first time in the KD Warriors era, we're really seeing the holes in the armor, the maybe the beginning of the end, so to speak. And I think it's really reminiscent of the Shaq Kobe last few years. I mean, in a much different light. But if you remember, Shaq Kobe three-peated 2000 through 2002, losing 2003, just maybe weren't playing up to par, and then they hire Karl Malone and Gary Payton, and all of a sudden they're a super team. They're gonna win it all. They make it to the NBA Finals, and they lose unceremoniously to the Detroit Pistons team. And then all of a sudden, Kobe wants to leave. Then Shaq ends up getting shipped out. Malone and Payton, I believe, retire or Payton left to go to the Heat. Then at that point, and it really ended. But it is just all from the Lakers. You think the more great players you have together, the better you're going to be. But when you have a clashing of the egos, it really makes it tough for a team to gel. And while the Warriors have, that doesn't mean the egos can't get too big to just uh, destroy the team. And remember, basketball, while it's one of the best individual sports, you can have one individual player really uplift the team. If you don't have a team playing as just that, as a team, it makes it really difficult for you to succeed. And what the Warriors has made the Warriors so great is they've been the best team in the NBA. Meaning, watching them, what they do best is they're arguably the best passing team in NBA history. And not only are they great shooters, but they constantly are moving the ball all around, getting that open shot. All of the 2014 Spurs in that finals run against Miami, moving the ball around the horn, finding the open man, and that's what's made them great. If these guys start getting selfish and letting the egos come into play, and then that goes to naught, and I think that'd be a travesty for Warriors fans. Personally, not a huge fan of the Warriors, so I kind of like to see the dynasty end. But I think you always want the dynasty to end because another team beats them and somebody's risen to their level, not because they beat themselves. I think we always foresaw that as great as this Warriors team is, the only way they were ever going to lose was if they beat themselves. But ideally for the NBA, you would like to see a Boston, a Toronto, Milwaukee, Houston finally dethrone the reigning champs. And whereas it looks like they could very well dethrone themselves. It'll be interesting to see. I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on what's going on with Draymond. Katie, should the Warriors trade Draymond? I don't know. I'll leave that up to them to decide. Apparently they're light years ahead of everybody, so we got to figure it out then. Anyways, it's Kevin Forbazy signing off. Thank you guys for tuning in.